Hello, welcome back to Social Studies. Today we are continuing to talk about place. Remember, place is one of our 5 themes of geography. And when we're looking at place, we really divide it into 2 categories. We divide it into physical characteristics and human characteristics that we see in our world. Last week we really dug deep into our physical characteristics, and this week we went further into human characteristics. Now we're going to start to compare the two here. And we're going to do that by looking at a real city. We're going to do our physical characteristics of the city today. And then on Monday, we're going to look at the human characteristics of this city. So let's go ahead and start with our reading here. The city we're going to be looking at is called Toronto. Do you know where the city of Toronto is located? In which country? It is in Canada. Very good. Please follow along as I read through this passage here. Toronto, Canada is a place where the land was mostly shaped by water. Part of Toronto was once covered by an ancient lake called Lake Iroquois. The lake shores were made of steep bluffs or cliffs that overlooked the water. The Toronto's islands formed from sediment broken off from the bluffs by the water of the lake. These islands created a natural harbor in Toronto. When the lake receded means to go back, it left large cliffs in Toronto where its shore had been. Lake Ontario is what is left of Lake Iroquois. The lake wasn't the only water that shaped Toronto. Major rivers carved wide, flat valleys into the land and left good soil for farming. Toronto has a continental climate. This means it has warm, humid summers and cold winters. Some plants that can be found in Toronto are sedge and sweet fern. Some animals that live in Toronto are beavers and coyotes. You can look at a map here. This is a map of Ontario, and the area of Ontario, Toronto, not Ontario, Toronto right here. You can look at the little light yellow color there. That's where we will see Toronto, and it's next to Lake Ontario, right over here. Now this lake might sound familiar, right? It's one of our Great Lakes. Let's take a step back a little further and see a wider picture of where Toronto is located in Canada. So I'm going to go into Google Earth, and right now what we're looking at is Saginaw. So this is the city of Saginaw. If you're looking in Saginaw, our school is more in this area on the west part of Saginaw, but this is where downtown Saginaw is. Now let's go ahead and take a little trip to Toronto. And Google Earth is going to take us there. It's pretty close, actually. This is where Toronto is located. It's along the water here in Lake Ontario, and you can see the red pin right there. If I zoom out, you can see a better image of where this is. I'm going to actually take off our lines of latitude and our lines of longitude because I want you guys to be able to see this a little bit better. Let me see if I can turn these lines off. Give me one moment. There we go. So I turned off those lines of latitude and longitude so then we can see a little bit better of what's going on here. So as you can see, Toronto is over in this area. And if we come this way a little further, this is all still part of Canada. That's when we hit the United States. And what state is this? Yes, this is the state of Michigan. This is where we live. We are right up here in Saginaw, and you can see that Toronto is relatively close to Michigan. We're pretty close to that area over there. So I'm going to zoom in a little closer. You can see it's on Lake Ontario, and you can see how it's kind of light colored, a little light brown right here, and as you go further out, you have more green. That is because along the water here, we have a lot more buildings. We don't have as many physical features like trees and bushes in this area, but as you spread out further, you can see more greenery as the cities become smaller. Toronto is a pretty good sized city there. All right. Now I'm going to take us over to what we will be doing for our assignment today. We're going to, like I said, talk about the physical characteristics that we see in the city of Toronto. So if we're looking right here, I can see that on this paper I have Toronto on one side in this column, and in my other column I have my community, and everybody will have Saginaw here. I added that in for you. Your job is to fill out the rest of this graphic organizer here that is going to help us put the physical characteristics in our different boxes here. So for example, our first box here, you need to put in the physical features that we might see in Toronto. I have already done that for our community in Saginaw. For example, I said, physical features in my community are the Tittabawassee River, trees, and grass. And notice how I used a complete sentence there. I would like you to do the same for Toronto. If you scroll down, I did add some images here. On this side is all about Toronto. So you can take a look at these images here and go ahead and write about some physical features that you see in Toronto here. And if you don't remember what physical features are, think back to previous videos, the difference between physical characteristics and the difference between human characteristics there. So you're going to add that in a complete sentence right here. This box is already done for you, and then the next box is going to be about climate. In Toronto, I have already added your climate box there for you. I said Toronto has a continental climate. This means it is warm and humid. It is warm and humid summers, and it is cold in the winter. And I'll have to add a winter in there. Your job is then to put in the community of Saginaw's climate. So you will write a complete sentence on what you think our climate looks like over here in Saginaw. And I did add some pictures here. And remember how we are pretty close to Toronto, so that makes me think our climates will actually be pretty similar. So you can use those pictures to help you out. Next, you're going to talk about plants that you might find in Toronto in this box. And then in this box, you're going to put plants that you might see in Saginaw. If you were to look out your window in your backyard, what type of plants would you see? You're not going to list all of them, just list at least 2 for each of these boxes. And for Toronto, you can again look at these images here and see what plants you see in those images. Lastly, we have animals for both Toronto and Saginaw. You know what animals can be found in Saginaw, and this does not mean a pet. It means what animals are found in nature. So if you were looking outside in the woods, what animals would be running around in Saginaw? So we're not going to put, for example, our pet dog. Yes, they live in Saginaw, but they are not a wild animal. So we are looking for what animals we see in our nature of Saginaw. Next is going to be animals for Toronto, and if you scroll down again and zoom in, I did list some animals that you might see in Toronto. These are so cool and beautiful animals, so you can go ahead and pick 1 or 2 that you would like to write about that are found in Saginaw. Remember, you need to do this in complete sentences. I don't want you to just write where it says plants, a tree. No, that is not acceptable. Make sure you take the time to write this out in a nice, complete sentence using capitalization and your punctuation there. If you have any questions, please reach out to your teachers and we will help you out in any way that we can. Have a great virtual Thursday.